Good afternoon. Today is the 8th of March 2022. Welcome to Lunchtime News here on TV1 for the Newsfirst team. I'm Senator Senanayaka. We would like to wish every woman in Sri Lanka a happy International Women's Day. Let's start off your bulletin with a look at your headlines. Sri Lankan migrant workers to get 38 rupees per US dollar incentive. Diesel queues turn ugly in Balangoda. Ministry says shortage will end in 2 days. Gas shipments finally reach Sri Lankan shores. President to convene Economic Council every week. Russia-Ukraine peace talks. Third round makes little progress. Now to those stories in detail. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka has positioned the rupee to 230 rupees against the US dollar with effect from yesterday to allow flexibility in the exchange rate.
The exchange rate between the US dollar and the Sri Lankan rupee has been maintained by the CBSL at around 202 rupees for the past year. However, since last night, the central bank took steps to allow the exchange rate to be determined by the market demand and supply. According to the exchange rate announced by the Bank of Ceylon this morning, the buying price of $1 was 227 rupees and the selling price was 230 rupees. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka maintained the Sri Lankan rupee against the US dollar at 202 rupees until yesterday, and the rupee traded between 240 to 250 rupees amidst the current foreign exchange deficit in the market. Against this backdrop, the inflow of foreign currency generated by foreign workers and exports through banks and accepted methods were limited. Most expat workers resorted to foreign exchange trading methods such as Hawala and Undial, which are not yet legalized in Sri Lanka, where a high return can be gained for the dollar. To control this situation, the central bank provided an additional allowance of 10 rupees per dollar for remittances sent to Sri Lanka, but the dollar did not flow as expected. Accordingly, the cabinet had approved yesterday to increase the remittance allowance of 10 rupees per dollar sent by foreign workers to 38 rupees. In addition, the cabinet approved the provision of an additional incentive of 30 rupees per dollar earned by exporters to encourage exports.
The central bank has decided to allow the rupee value to be determined by the market to a certain extent. The central bank believes that this decision will benefit the employees of the export sector and the expatriate workers, drive the export sector and will boost the economy. This decision has not been made with certainty. The central bank governor will give you a technical brief regarding this.
ගේ කීයේ වුණත් ඒ කියන්නේ රුපියල් 38ක් වැඩිපුර ගෙවනවද කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ මේ තීන්දුව ගන්නකොට මහා බැංකුව මේ තීරණයට ප්‍රවේශ වෙලා තිබෙන්නේ නැහැ. මේක කරුණාකරලා අපි හෙට දවසේ මේ පිළිබඳ නිශ්චිත පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් තාක්ෂණික පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් මහා බැංකුව අධිපතිතුමා විසින් ඔබට සිදු කරાવી.
The Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has assured that India will continue to support Sri Lanka in all possible ways.
In a tweet, the Indian High Commissioner in Sri Lanka said the Indian External Affairs Minister had a productive and cordial telephone conversation with Sri Lanka's Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa last evening. It added that both sides agreed to a mutually convenient date in the second half of March for Basil Rajapaksa's visit to India.
In more local news, many areas in Sri Lanka are experiencing power outages that commenced this morning.
The Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka granted approval for the Ceylon Electricity Board's request for power cuts. Groups P, Q, R, S, T, U, V and W will experience 2-hour power cuts between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. and a 1-hour power cut from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. The Commission announced that Groups E and F will experience 5-hour power cuts between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. and 2.5 power cuts between 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. Meanwhile, Additional General Manager of the CEB, Anju Navamani, said the generation of power is currently underway at the Kalanithissa, Keravalapitiya and Sabugaskanda power plants. He added that 15% of the power plant's capacity is added to the national grid.
ඉන්ධන වලින් 30කට ආසන්න ප්‍රමාණයක් වැය වෙන්නේ විදුලිය ජනනය කිරීම සඳහා. දැන් ඇත්තටම ඊයේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය මේක දීර්ඝ වශයෙන්ම සාකච්ඡා කරා. ක්ෂණික තීන්දුව කීපයක් ගන්න.
30% of our fuel imports are utilized to generate electricity. This was discussed at length at the cabinet yesterday. A few decisions were made regarding this matter. The cabinet decided to immediately supply furnace oil to the power stations in Ambilipicha, Matara and Sapugaskanda. The government is aware of the pressures faced by the people. The current president is at the position that Sri Lanka must begin to produce renewable energy as soon as possible. He is in the process of removing whatever obstacles that are in the way. Minister of Energy Gamini Lokugay assured the cabinet that the fuel crisis will be resolved by Thursday.
උනා කනිජ තෙල් විෂය භාර ඇමතුමා ලොකුගේ ඇමතුමා ලබන බ්‍රහස්පතින්දයින් පසුව කනිජ තෙල් පිළිබඳව තියෙන අර්බුදය නිමා කරන්නට කටයුතු කරනවායි කියලා.
Meanwhile, the shortage of diesel across many areas in Sri Lanka remains unsolved, and this has forced many Sri Lankans to remain in queue for hours to purchase fuel.
A tense situation erupted at a fuel station in Balagahamula in Balangoda when its customers claimed that the fuel station is deliberately delaying the process of issuing fuel. Our Newsfirst correspondent reported that as a result of the tense situation that erupted at this fuel station, its customers blocked the Colombo-Badula main road completely. Later, the police intervened to control the situation, promising that fuel will be issued from midnight onwards. The fuel station started issuing fuel from 1 a.m. onwards. Only one fuel station in Anuradhapura had received fuel, and there was a massive queue to purchase fuel. However, the fuel station only issued fuel worth 5,000 rupees per vehicle. A few fuel stations in Ahaliagoda, Ratnapura had received diesel last night. Newsfirst correspondent reported that people were lined up in long queues to purchase fuel. Our Newsfirst correspondent reported that only one fuel station in Badula had received fuel. Farmers in Dehiatakandia have been standing in line for days in an effort to purchase diesel for their machines. Farmers cultivated this season without fertilizer. Now farmers are left desperate as they are unable to reap the harvest they cultivated with the greatest difficulty. They are in dire straits as they don't have diesel to fuel their machines to reap the harvest this season. The farmers in Madirigiri Polonnaruwa now spend their days lined up in queues to purchase fuel for their machines.
Diesel. මේ මැෂින් වලට ඩීසල් නෑ කපන්න. ඒ හින්දා මේ හැකි ඉක්මනින් තෙල් ටික සෙට් වලට දිව රාත්‍රියේ නොබලා අපිට දෙන්න කියලා කියන්නේ මේ කපා ගන්න. රාත්‍රියේ හරි රැට හරි තෙල් වාර්පියෝ දැන් ඊයේ ඉඳන් වෙත ට්‍රැක්ටරේ පාරේ. මේකෙත් නෑ මාත්‍රෝ තෙල්. ඔය තෙල් නෑ. පොඩ්ඩයි තියෙන ඕ. චරයි මාත්‍රෝ තෙල් තියෙන.
මාත්‍යා කිරිපත් කාපේ උන් නම් 69 ලස්සෙන් හොයාගන්නත් නැහැ. උන් දැන් අහනවා අපෙන් සැපද කියලා. අපි නම් නෙවෙයි මහත්තයා දුන්නේ උන්ට. දැන් කිරිපත් කාපේ උන් තියා මොකෙක්වත් නැහැ හොයාගන්න.
Farmers are requesting the government to take swift action to end this fuel crisis, giving them access to diesel for their machines to harvest their crops. The Ministry of Energy said the current diesel shortage will be resolved within the next 2 days. Secretary to the Ministry of Energy, KDR Olga, said that 2 diesel ships are currently being unloaded. She added that there are about 20,000 metric tons of diesel left in the ships to be unloaded. Meanwhile, 45,000 metric tons of diesel has been unloaded from the 2 ships. The Secretary said the unloading of furnace oil will begin today. The Secretary confirmed that another diesel ship has arrived in the country and that the current diesel shortage will be resolved after payments for that ship is made.
At a time when there is a shortage of gas in the island, the unloading of gas from one of the 3 ships anchored off Handler commenced this morning.
Accordingly, the gas will be transported from the Thaldiavat buoy to the Keravalpiti Electro Gas Company. However, gas outlets in many parts of the island were still closed today. This was the situation in Avisavella today. Currently, a large number of restaurants and bakeries are closed due to the gas shortage. Our correspondents say that restaurant owners in the Avisavella area are facing severe difficulties due to the shortage of gas. Gas outlets in Badegama town were also closed in this manner. Meanwhile, several counters selling food at the Badegama Pradeshya Sabha restaurant have been closed.
Taking a look at a headline-making story this afternoon, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed for the Economic Council to convene on a weekly basis.
The Economic Council was established and it will be chaired by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. It will comprise of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Ministers Bandula Gunawardena, Johnston Fernando, Basil Rajapaksa, Mahindananda Alutgamage, Ramesh Patigwana, Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Ajit Niwad Kabwal, Secretary to the President, Secretary to the Treasury and the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. We need to understand that there is an issue and decisions on government policies and economic policies need to be made.
සසලවීමක් තියෙන බව අපි කවුරුත් තේරුම් ගන්න දෙයක්. ඒ නිසා මෙවැනි මොහොතක ඊටාම වැදගත් තීන්දුවක් කියලා කියන කාරණේ මම කැමතියි ඔබට පළමුවෙන්ම අවධාරණය කරන්න.
Sri Lanka's Supreme Court has delivered its determination to the Parliament on the Prevention of Terrorism Bill. The determination was read out by Speaker Mahinda Abeyewardena.
3 of the bill cannot be enacted into law unless the number of votes cast in favor of thereof amounts not less than 2/3 of the whole number of members, including those not present, as per the Constitution. Clause number 4 of the bill, the Supreme Court states that be that it as it may, the learned additional Solicitor General has informed the court that the Honorable Attorney General would be advising the Minister to insert Article 141 into the body of the proposed Section 10 in Clause 4 of the bill, and that the Minister would move that amendment at the committee stage of Parliament to address the concerns of the petitioners. Clause number 6 of the bill, the Supreme Court holds that it cannot inquire into pronounce upon or in any manner called in question the validity of Section 11 of the PTA on any ground whatsoever in terms of Article 83 of the Constitution.
Women shape the world. Today is World's Women's Day, which celebrates the very essence of women all over the world.
This International Women's Day, the theme is #BreakTheBias, where the International Women's Day is encouraging women to share photos of themselves with crossed arms in front of them to highlight the movement. Spurred on by the universal female movement that had begun in New Zealand, International Women's Day originated from labor movements in North America and Europe during the early 20th century. Sri Lanka was one of the few countries to join the world movement for International Women's Day, and this year Sri Lanka celebrates its women under the theme Rataki, Dayaki, Lovaki, Aya.
The grand finale of Vanithabhimana 2021, rewarding Sri Lanka's female achievers, on a national level will take place this evening at the BMICH. Vanitha Abhimana 2021 is jointly organized by Newsfirst and NDB Bank. We are now joined by Newsfirst's Azra Hassan, who will tell us more about what we are to expect at the grand finale.
Today is an important day for women across the world and also in Sri Lanka. We have the Sri Lanka Vanitha Abhimana Grand Finale taking place at the BMICH in Colombo this evening. We will be appreciating and recognizing the service rendered by the women in the country for the betterment of our nation. As you can see behind me, we have the preparations underway to make sure that the Grand Finale will be a success today. So stay with News First as we will keep you updated. For the Newsfirst team, I am Azra Hassan.
Thank you, Azra, for that comprehensive update. In more local news, the joint chambers have listed their concerns and suggestions to resolve the precarious country situation after having met an emergency session last week and issuing a statement subsequently.
We have suggested that that there is a market-driven pricing formula for fuel, for gas and electricity. Therefore, we see sometimes there is excessive demand because of the subsidized pricing scheme that is there presently. So you cannot keep on causing a huge deficit in supplying at this subsidized pricing, and our recommendation has been acknowledged by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. So we think if this can be done quickly, maybe then there is a significant amount of foreign exchange that we can save, and this needs to be extended to the foreign exchange depreciation as well. So we think there has to be a careful depreciation that has to be allowed so that we can continue to receive foreign exchange coming into our country. The next thing, of course, we have continuously said is to restructure our debt, because most of our reserves are going to pay our debt. So therefore, we feel the earlier we reach out to all our debtors and come out with a plan, then there is some way forward, and then we can use our reserves for the most important needs of our country, namely the essential imports such as obviously fuel, medicine, food products, etc. So that is the second thing that we are recommended. Finally, of course, we need to reach out to some international agencies. We have recommended the IMF, but whoever it is who can extend help in towards financing the differences in our shortage of reserve.
Let's take a look at the latest developments that came in from Ukraine today. Ukrainian officials said a bread factory has been hit by a Russian airstrike yesterday as the country's negotiators assembled for talks with Russian officials after previous rounds that brought no respite in the conflict.
The bodies of at least 13 civilians were recovered from rubble after the factory in the town of Makariv in the Kyiv region was hit. Local emergency services said 5 people were rescued of the 30 believed to have been there at the time. Foreign media was not immediately able to verify the reported attack. Russia earlier offered Ukrainians escape routes to Russia and its close ally Belarus yesterday after weekend evacuation ceasefire attempts failed. In the besieged southern port city of Mariupol, hundreds of thousands of people remained trapped without food and water under regular bombardments. A Ukrainian negotiator urged Russia to stop its assault on Ukraine, which the UN said had sent 1.7 million people fleeing to Central Europe. Meanwhile, negotiators from Ukraine and Russia convened for a third round of talks on Monday, with the Ukrainian delegation saying there was potential progress on ensuring humanitarian corridors. Although an overall deal has not been reached, Ukraine's lead negotiator Mikhailo Podolyak said on Twitter, after talks that there were some small positive shifts regarding logistics of humanitarian corridors. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he would stay in Kyiv as long as it's necessary to win what he called a patriotic war. Zelensky accused Russia of violating agreements on humanitarian corridors, saying Russian troops mined the route agreed for delivery of aid.
There was an agreement on humanitarian corridors. Did it work? Russian tanks, Russian guards, Russian mines worked instead of it. They have even mined the road agreed for delivery of food and medicines for people.
Будемо наполягати на переговорах, поки не знайдемо спосіб сказати нашому народу.
Russia has said it may close its main gas pipeline to Germany if the West goes ahead with a ban on Russian oil. Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said a rejection of Russian oil will lead to catastrophic consequences for the global market, causing prices to more than double to $300 a barrel. The US has been exploring a potential ban with allies as a way of punishing Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. But Germany and the Netherlands rejected the plan yesterday. The EU gets about 40% of its gas and 30% of its oil from Russia and has no easy substitutes if supplies are disrupted.
And that's a wrap of this edition of Lunchtime News here on TV1. For the News First team, I'm Sanita Senanayaka. Take care and stay safe.